Hello, Rick. Hello, Visaka. Welcome to those joining. Hello, Gretchen. As always, we're giving it a few minutes for people to come in before getting started. How's audio, video? Hello, Karuna and Anna. Karuna, I'm going to be doing Empty Cloud Wednesday sessions the next 2 weeks. So this Wednesday and next Wednesday, I'm doing the 7:30 to 9 session at night. Hello, Metika, Anna. Now we're going to cover two very complicated topics: dependent origination and anatta. Should be fun. Hello, Bill. Welcome. So we're just giving it a couple minutes for people to come in. Karuna was all excited that I was going to give it a chat until I gave the topics. I've been needing a challenge lately. And so dependent origination and anatta are always a wonderful challenge to talk about. So I need to push myself. My next retreat is most likely going to be a dependent origination retreat. I've never done one yet, but I think I'm to the point where I could definitely do one, and it'd be worth actually attending. Same. All right. Well, keep an eye out for my dependent origination retreat, and maybe you can join me. I mean, I'm probably only going to do one more retreat this year, end of November, beginning of December. Hello, Dallas. Welcome. All right, we'll get started in about a minute or so. Anna, there is no topic for dependent origin. There is no topic for Dhammapalooza. That's the point of Dhammapalooza. We never know what's going to happen because it's community guided. Leave it up to the people. Hello, Matthias. We have a strong European contingent on Dhammapalooza tonight. Staying up late. Yeah, Bhikkhu Bodhi was in with my Indonesian friends in New York City. I saw on their channel that he gave a talk. I haven't stayed with him in over a year. Maybe this year coming up, I'll get to stay with him for a little bit. Every time I'm at Empty Cloud, they keep asking when I'm going to come stay with them. Just hasn't worked out. All right, let's get started, shall we? No, stay with us. Um, for a variety of reasons, it's actually much better to stay with the Indonesians, even though it's in New York City, which I'm not a huge fan of. But yeah, no, of course, I do want to actually I want to spend time at Empty Cloud when Bante and Aya are actually there, because I do. It's been almost half a year that I've actually spent any time with other monastics, so I'm kind of jonesing to be around monastics right now. It's definitely impacting me currently. I need to be around at least some monastics for some amount of time. But all right, let's get started. We'll share screen. We'll do Karaniametta Sutta for the intro today. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Karaniya matta kusulena yantang santang padang abhisametcha sako ujucha sujucha suvacho chassa mudu natimani santus sako cha subaro cha appakicho cha salloka butti santindriyo cha nipako cha appagabbo kulesu ananugiddo Nachakuddang samachare kinchiena vinyu pare upavadeyum sukino va kemeno hontu sabbe satta bhavantu sukitatta ye kechipana buttati tasava tavarava anavasesa dighava ye mahantava majjima rasika nukatula Ditava yeva ditta ye chadure vasante avidure uttava sambhave siva sabbe satta bhavantu sukitatta naparo parang yekubetta nyatimanyetta tachinang kanchi vyaro sana patigasanya nanyamanyassa dukkamicheya Mata yatani yang puttang ayusa eka puttang anurakke evang pisabbe bhutesu manasang bhavaye parimanang mettang cha sabbalokasming manasang bhavaye parimanang udhang adho cha tiriyan cha asampadang averang asapattang Titang charang nisinova sayanova yavatassa vegetamiddo etang sating aditteya brahmametang viharang idamahu titincha anupagamma silava dasanena sampano kame suvinaya gedang nahi jatu gambasayang punarititi etena satchavajena sottime hottu sabbada. All right, English. One skilled in good, wishing to attain that state of peace, should act thus. One should be able, straight, and upright, obedient, gentle, and humble. One should be content, easy to support, with few duties, living lightly, controlled in senses, discreet, not impudent, unattached to families, One should not do any slight wrong which the wise might censure. May all beings be happy and secure. May all beings have happy minds. Whatever living beings there may be, without exception, weak or strong, long or large, medium, short, subtle or gross, visible or invisible, living near or far, born or coming to birth, may all beings have happy minds. Let no one deceive another, nor despise anyone anywhere. Neither from anger nor ill will should anyone wish harm to another. As a mother would risk her own life to protect her only child, even so towards all living beings one should cultivate a boundless heart. One should cultivate for all the world a heart of boundless loving friendliness, above, below, and all around, unobstructed, without hatred or resentment. Whether standing, walking, or sitting, lying down, or whenever awake, one should develop this mindfulness. This is called divinely dwelling here. Not falling into erroneous views, but virtuous and endowed with vision, moving desire for sensual pleasures. One comes never again to birth in the womb. By the power of this truth, may I always have well-being. All right, friends. Hello, Yankee. Welcome. Okay, friends. So it is Monday night here on the East Coast, USA, 7 p.m. So that means it is time for another festival of Dhamma with the Maggasekha community. Time for Dhammapalooza. This is our hour and a half to 2 hour long festival of Dhamma, in which we do a variety of Dhamma related activities. There's some chanting, we'll do some meditation. Who knows what else we'll do? There's a whole wide variety of activities we could be doing. So for the next couple of minutes in the chat, if you have any questions you'd like me to answer, again, these questions can run the gamut from everything related to Buddhism. So anything related to meditation, Buddhism in general, any questions you have about monks' rules. Last week's Vinaya session, I think, was pretty successful, and a bunch of people even commented they really liked it. So if you have any questions that you'd like me to clarify about monks, bhikkhu bhikkhuni rules, you can ask those. And anything related to meditation, monastics, Dhamma, Buddhism, etc. And if nobody has any questions, or if you have any topics that you'd like me to give a Dhamma talk on, nobody has any of those, well, there's always Sutta Roulette, or perhaps reading a Sutta. We'll see what happens. I like Sutta Roulette, though. It's quite active. So we'll see what happens. Visakha says, party on, dudes. Hello, Visakha. So for the next couple minutes, questions, talk topics, etc., type it in the chat. If nothing, we'll do some Sutta Roulette. Chat looks quiet. Maybe it's time to liven some things up again around here. Oh, Rick has a question. Oh, here it comes. Yeah. This is why I always give it time, because sometimes the chat takes a little while. So, good questions we have here. Rick starts it off. I have peacefully let go of many things. My dogs put a strain on me and my limited resources, but I can't imagine letting them go. How do we know whether we should or should not let go of important things in our life? Well, what I would say is you need to really look at your mind and really look at the attachment in your mind. You've probably heard me talk about that, the purge thing that I used to do before I was a monk, when I would, have an item, something I owned in my hand, and I would say, "Can I let this go?" And I'd watch the attachment, and if I wasn't ready to let it go, it was okay. I put it to the side. You know, um, when it comes to living at pets and things like living animals, this is obviously something that's we people have a strong attachment to. I shouldn't say we, because honestly I never have. I'm not a pet person, but I mean I can understand why somebody would attach. And I guess it's something that you kind of weigh the pros and cons. Yes, if they put a strain on your resources, but do they give you other things that are of equal benefit that you'd like to keep them? Or maybe it's time that you start thinking about a good home they might go to. So this is something with, especially when it comes to something like, we're not talking about like, you held on to VHS tapes from 30 years ago that don't really have anything. It's not like, when it comes to a living being, it's a little bit more, you know, nuanced than it's just let it go. See you later, kind of a thing. Um, but investigate your thoughts on this and really try to see the pros and cons. And you keep them, you keep them. If you want to give them away, you try to find a good home for them and let them, give joy and happiness to somebody else. The thing about letting go of things, right, is oftentimes in life, whether you want to let go or not, life forces you to have to let go of things. People die, right? People move on, these kind of things. And so there are times where you probably save yourself a lot of suffering by um, voluntarily letting go of something than having it go away on you. It is very clear in the what they call what a psychological literature or whatever with the psychologists that people handle hard things much better if they voluntarily choose to face the hard thing as opposed to if it's kind of thrusted on them. Even if it's a really brutal hard thing, somebody who voluntarily chooses to do it, less PTSD and stress and all that. It's really fascinating stuff, but really not that fascinating because it's about mindset, right? Being able to choose to let go as opposed to having it ripped out from your fingers as you're holding on to it. It's not easy to let go of things. So we practice letting go of small things, and eventually we can let go of larger things. Karuna has a similar vein, talking about letting attachments, but this one to possessions. The thing is, it's always a good question. Do you really need, like, you see something, it's like, do I really need this? Do I really need four pairs of shoes? Like, I look at my 18-year-old nephew, and he has more shoes than I did in probably a 15-year period in right now. And I mean, like, I say you definitely take after your mother on that one. Because I had only 2 shoes at the same time ever, and, I just replaced them when they were done. I didn't feel like I needed so many shoes. Um, and, but whatever fashion, style, clout, what do they call it? Drip. What, "Oh, the drip this, the drip that." You gotta have the drip. I'm like, "Okay." My drip was Target sweatpants. That was my drip, even as a layperson. Of course, for work, I dressed up in suits, actually. I prefer always wearing, like, suits and ties. But anyway, that's to the side. It's really questioning what you really need and being honest with what you really need. And why are you holding on to things? I saw this, I never felt like I had this tendency, but when I started living in cooties, I really noticed I had this tendency, like every spare extra bottle, I saw in it the capability to hold something like water or put stuff in it or whatever. And so, like, I remember my cootie, and I looked around one day, and I had like 20 bottles, and I'm like, why am I holding on to these things? Do I need this? I don't need these things. But always my mind is like, you might need it, you might need it, you might need it. And then I have to counteract my mind and say, yeah, you thought that for the last 2 years and you never use any of these things. I still do this to this day. I could still, I just, even this little, basically everything that as a monk that I own, quote unquote, which is like books, toiletries, some extra clothing and things like that. It's all in this closet here. Basically, everything, that I have is in this closet, and it stays there while I travel around. Um, but even then, I had to like look just the other day, and it's like, I don't need all this stuff, and I just cleared out a bunch. It's just stuff that was collected over time that I kind of just threw in there. It's the same thing when I was at Bhavana. I would just notice that because I was in one place for a long period of time, stuff would just collect, 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 collect. And every once in a while, I wanted to, change cooties or do something, just to kind of break out of that, habit of just collecting things. So this is, at minimum, reflecting on what you really need and trying to minimize all of your clutter, because all of this is baggage, whether it's mental or physical. We carry around all of our attachments in like this heavy backpack that keeps weighing us down. And the people who are serious practitioners who practice for long periods of time and they start to let go and let go, their backpack goes much lighter. There's not so much stuff weighing them down. I remember before I went to the monastery, I even took a picture of it. I put it on Facebook. I took a picture and I said, "This is everything I own in the world." And it was just a corner of, my parents' basement. Okay, this is everything left. And it's mostly books and like old stuff that is kind of expensive, like my photography equipment or like my armor when I used to do medieval fighting, and just random stuff that's kind of too expensive to throw away. Just kind of my guitars, all that stuff. Just kind of left it there, and it's like, this is it. And I really felt I was like, good. Like everything I own in this life is right here in this little corner of a basement, and I felt really, really light, really nice. Really peaceful. So owning less, being attached to less things is very good. If you're a layperson, you have a spouse and children and things like that. Obviously, you don't, detach from them, at least not in an unskillful way. You have responsibilities and things you need to take care of for basic life. As a monk, I still have to take care of these things. Although, I mean, in all honesty, other people take care of it for me, right? Is that's what being a monk is about? People support you with the requisites. So I'm not taking care of them per se, but somebody else has. Somebody has to take care of it. So it's not about like, and of course, as a monk, my job is to make sure that what is given is handled in a skillful way, not abused, and that I'm not, um, you know, uh, like being corrupt and using it unskillfully and things like this. So we have to deal with things. And we have money and we have items and things like that. But we can practice having less attachment, letting go more. Takes time, practice, but it also takes a desire to practice and want to let go. That you really do sincerely want to start letting go of things. And you start out small and you build from there. All right. Hello, Gregory. Welcome. Visaka says, Bante, before you were ordained, were you romantically involved with a non-Buddhist atheist type? Uh, well, yeah. I mean, do you mean like while I was a Buddhist? I assume maybe you mean while I was a Buddhist. Maybe the question is about like as a Buddhist in a relationship with a non-Buddhist, how you handle these kind of things. I don't know. I'm gonna just wait and see if you type anything in the chat, Elaine Visaka, before I move on. Let's see. Hello, wow, we have a good amount of people with us tonight. So welcome, friends. If this is your first time, um, welcome. And if you have any questions you'd like me to answer, you can type them in the chat. So yes, Visaka says yes, like that is what she means. So let's see. While I was a Buddhist, yeah, I had a couple girlfriends while I was a Buddhist in my early years. Um, it didn't really matter. The same thing with my family. Like me being a Buddhist didn't really have an impact on other people around me at all. I mean, if it had an impact, it had a positive impact, but it was a very minimal one because I didn't. How should I say? I didn't wear it on my sleeve to the point where everything had to be about Buddhism. Right? People kind of get wrapped up in their new religion or their new ideology or their new fad or whatever's going on, and they just have to make sure everybody knows about it. That's just not me. That's not who I am. Right? Yeah, I've always been. I practice, and if people see benefit and ask me about it, then that's fine. So I mean, it never really came up. Um, it was never really yeah, just was kind of a I mean, if I was to get married to somebody and I was a Buddhist and they weren't, there might be some conflicts there. Like most statistics tell you that, you know, the best person to get married to is somebody who shares your values, right? Having drastically different values can be the cause of a lot of conflict in a marriage. You know, so that doesn't necessarily mean you be the same religion per se, but if the religions are drastically different, can cause a lot of complications. It is what it is. People still make do. Um, But yeah, I mean, for in my personal life, it really had no impact me being a Buddhist. Other than maybe I was a bit too patient. Maybe I probably should have been a little bit more assertive on certain things and not be so agreeable, which I am. I'm a very agreeable person, get along to go along kind of person. That's okay until it's not okay. You know, there's a balance in everything. Karuna says medieval armor. What? Are you on my Facebook? Well, I could say to if you're on my Facebook to look back. Um, but some people might not like what they see on my Facebook. Yes, I did used to do medieval fighting and had a full set of steel armor. Yeah, and swords. Always loved swords. Like the Buddha, I suspect I had many past lives of martial activity. That's what I'll say. All right, so let's go back up. All right, Douse is coming in with the Dallas, I've missed you, my friend, because your questions are always interesting. It's good to have you back. That tends to be what happens with people. They go away for a while and maybe they come back. Sometimes they never do. But anyway, here's a fun. What about having no intentions to kill, yet knowing our actions will most likely result in the death of living beings? For example, walking in a forest, being aware that we will step on bugs. All right. So this is a good question. And I'll use examples as somebody who lived in a forest. Um, when you are walking in the forest, you're not going to be able to know or see all the bugs you might walk on. But if you're paying attention, like when I'm walking through the forest, or my eyes are I'm always situational awareness. Not even just for what you might step on. You should be your head on a swivel, knowing everything that's happening around you, right? Because you never know what can happen when you're in the forest. So it behooves you to be very situationally aware of which is the translation that Bhante Sujata uses for um, for sampajanya. It behooves you to clearly comprehend your environment. And so you're about to step and you see that there's bugs in the way. So you just adjust that your step is a bit bigger so you don't step on them. It is what it is. It's like that uber vegan guy who came to Bhavana. He only lasted a month. Um, Most people did not like the guy. He was a bit much. I ended up kind of liking the guy towards the end, but this is the kind of guy who was more like a Jain than a Buddhist. I kind of said it's like you're a bit more on the Jain side, and he's like, really? But so he was totally dead set. He would be like inside Bhavana, and any bug he saw, he would be taking it outside because he thought every bug would die if they're inside. And like his whole, I hope his anxiety, I don't know, whatever, but he wouldn't help me. It's like I got to keep people from not dying in the winter by putting these huge logs in this big fire, this big wood boiler, and I need some help. I mean, I'm, good shape and I can throw these big logs in, but I can't do it myself. And so when somebody was a resident, that was part of the job, right? Because you have to do that twice a day, every day throughout the whole winter. Right. And I was already managing all kinds of, so somebody's a resident, you're helping me. Let's do this. And he wouldn't put wood in the fire. And it was because He didn't know there might be a bug in there. And I was like, oh, Jesus, Buddha, Allah, whatever. It's like, okay, fine, whatever. you know? Um, but what I did notice was that, this kind of, it's not that I started doing it at that point, but it did make me aware. It's like, okay, there might be bugs in there. And so as I was picking up the log to throw it in, if I saw it had a bunch of ants, I just put it to the side. Let the ants and all the bugs get out of it, and then tomorrow I'd throw it in. Or, if I remember one time I put the log in there and I saw it had a bug and I took it out real quick. Right. So if the opportunity, and you'll notice, you can feel, you can see when there is an opportunity. The opportunity arises, you see that bug or you see whatever, and you don't want to harm this being, so you take that opportunity. Your intention is to take that opportunity to not harm the being. If you think that you're going to 24/7, 365, not step out any bugs and do all yada, 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 you'll go insane. You'll die early of anxiety from trying to live like that. Because again, that is not living in line with nature, the reality of the world. The reality of the world is your existence causes other beings to die. Period. That's the reality of the world. And if you try to change the world in that way, it doesn't exist. Right? But if you have a clear opportunity to not harm the being, then you don't do it. So that's my perspective on this. You can see, I notice it's almost like a bell rings in my mind that, oh, this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity to do something good. Doesn't even have to be like save a bug. I mean, this is an opportunity to hold a door for somebody, or things like that. I can very clearly see when there's an opportunity that arises, and that is where my intention to do an act becomes very clear, and I do that act. Otherwise, it's just life. It's just the way it is. So when you very clearly see that if you continue on doing an action, it'll be harmful, then you choose not to do it. If you just living your life, going about your day, and you end up killing a bug or harming somebody, then it's not your intention. Maybe it's good to be mindful not to do that, but it's not your intention, so you shouldn't feel overly guilty about it. You didn't create bad karma. You just were unmindful. So don't do that again. So try to be more mindful in that situation. Bill has a question. Why does the path seem so difficult? It doesn't seem difficult. It is difficult. I have had 2 experiences of not using right speech. Only 2? Geez, I've had thousands. Even probably a couple hundred since becoming a Buddhist. You're doing pretty good if you've only had 2. But no, it's the Noble Eightfold Path goes against the stream. Buddha tells us this very clearly. Normally, what the average person is just like on the river, floating down the river, just going with the flow. Buddha uses the simile multiple times. How that river, that stream, usually goes off a waterfall or something. It usually doesn't end very well. So normally we're just obliviously floating down the river. Then all of a sudden, you start to go against the stream. You ever tried to swim upriver? It's not easy. Very much not easy. To go against the flow of water. So when now I'm going to start meditating. I'm going to follow the Noble Eightfold Path. You're going against the stream of evolution. You're going against the stream of enculturation, against the stream of DNA, against the stream of your karma. All of these things, all these forces. Now you decided to go against them. You think that's going to be easy? You think that's not going to be the hardest thing you'll ever do? The path is, in my opinion, sincerely, honestly, dedicatedly following the path through to the end is the hardest thing and the most noble thing a being can do. There's nothing more noble than that, than to really do that, to follow that path to the end, to cleanse the mind. Nothing more noble, nothing harder than that. So it doesn't seem difficult. It is difficult. All right, Cameron, Bante, do you have any insights into difference between no goal and Zen, i.e., not practicing to attain a goal, versus the narrow and clear goal of Vajrayana? The goal liberation must be kept in mind. Um, Honestly, I don't know if I know enough about the specifics of these two things to really talk about them. But I think I kind of understand the general gist. So I'm going to make a comment. And so I think what's important is you have to have a goal. You have to have an ideal to strive for, like a shining light, like the North Star. And while you're, say you're traveling across the land, you're traveling from one land to another, it's going to take you 3 months, and you travel at night, and the North Star is your guide. So you look up and you say, okay, I'm going north. Now, if the whole time you're traveling, especially at night, your eyes are just up like this and you're just walking, what's going to happen? You're going to trip, you're going to fall, things are going to hit you. Like, you're not paying attention, you're not grounded in now. But likewise, if you don't have that North Star, you have no guidance. You have no goal. You're not going anywhere. Where are you going? I don't know. Somewhere. I just got to sit and do nothing. And no. And that's not me saying anything about Zen or whatever. Again, I said I don't know anything about these things. But still, this is the idea, right? So the way I view it, the way I understand it, is that there is the ideal that you're striving towards. Every once in a while, you look up to see the North Star. You're going in the general right direction. And then you come back to the present and you're focusing on what's going on now. Doing your practice in the day to day, being consistent, being dedicated, etc., etc. And even though it might be a bit zigzaggy, if you're going in the right direction, then you're going in the right direction. So I guess that's what I would say. There's a balance between not getting too lost on the goal and focusing on the day to day and making sure that in the day to day you're generally going in that direction. I think that you should have the aspiration. Like, if you have an aspiration for awakening or stream entry, that's your ideal. That's your North Star. That's your goal. And then it is, okay, what do I need to do every day to get to that goal? And you focus on what you need to do every day. Every once in a while, looking up, seeing how far away you are from the goal and adjusting as need be. Anna says, did you bring anything with you when you ordination? Um, when I moved to the monastery as a layperson, I had my car. And so, like when you move to a monastery as a layperson, and even as an anagarika, if you have any bills, if you have a phone, if you still have to pay for all that stuff, right? So you still have, you could be living in the monastery, but you still have bills, you still have things that you need to pay. Then usually, when you're up to the point of being a samanera, like when I right before I became a samanera, I went home and I gave my car, or I to my last girlfriend. She needed a car. I gave her the title. She bought it for $1. Here you go, boom. I gave her my car, and that was it. It was my car was gone, so I didn't have a car. So as you're that, and in many places don't encourage you to just say, I dropped everything and I'm going to the monastery. Why? Because you don't know you're going to stay there. You don't know they're going to actually ordain you. Being ordained is never a guarantee. When I moved to Bhavana, I didn't know I was going to be a monastic. It turned out I was ordained there, but there was no guarantee. Even at some points, Bhante Ji was kind of like, I don't know if I'm ready to have you become an anagarika. Things like this, right? A discerning monastic should do that. They shouldn't just ordain anybody and their mother. That's not good for the sangha. So, when you go to a monastery, usually you have things. But by the time you're a samanera, or you're about to be a samanera, that's usually when people are like, okay, you got this, you got that, you got to let go of that. You got to get it, give it to your family, do whatever, get away with it. The only thing that I would say I carried into monastic life that I owned in lay life was my camera equipment from my camera business. And that was because I was using it at Bhavana. I was recording videos, recording retreats. I was, using all that. I still use the the photo editing and the video editing software I bought as a photographer. I still use that for editing and things doing now as a monk. That's pretty much the only thing that I kept over. Very good. Visaka is talking about how she gave her father's not even passed on only a year, not even. So it's very recent. And she gave her father's CD player to an elderly widow person who could use it. That's very good. Right? Thinking about how somebody else could use it. It's very good. Gregory says, are monks allowed to have pets? Well, in ancient times, people didn't have really pets like we think of today, right? Like obviously people had dogs to like, when they were doing the sheep and things like that. There weren't like, like house pets that we cuddle with and sit on the couch with, or cats to kill the mice and the grains and things like. So it's very different in ancient times. It wasn't like pets like we think of today. And so there's nothing about pets in the monastic rules. Really nothing. Um, Although I would say that there are, parts of the rules where the Buddha's like, monks aren't supposed to have, aren't accept men, women, girls, gives a whole list of these kind of things, people and items that lay people would accept, and monks shouldn't be accepting them. So you could say that pets are probably one of those. I have no plans to have any pets at my Maggasekha monastery. Zero plans. Um, but I've also seen places where they didn't have any plans for it either, and some layperson, for some reason, the pet just ended up showing up at their door. They took care of it and things like that. Even Bhante Ji had a dog for like 14 years at Bhavana. I don't know how he ended up getting that dog. Um, So, I mean, it's fairly common that monasteries have like dogs and cats, and even the monasteries in Thailand have the tigers and things like that. But I wouldn't say that individual monks own them per se. They're probably just more part of the monastery. So, but again, though, I don't think it's really a major thing either way. There's no rule that says monks shouldn't have pets. So monastics have pets. It is what it is. Just looking through um the chat here. Chat is very lively today. This is the most lively chat's been in a couple weeks. It's, it happens. Let's see. Did Matthias says, did Buddha talk about how stream entering continues to next life or other stages, growing up when they realize the stages they are in, early childhood, later on in life? This is a very interesting question. And I don't think it's ever discussed, nor have I ever really heard a monastic talk about it in detail. You become a stream enter, and I become a stream enter in this life. How do I know I'm a stream enter in the next? It's a good question. I have no idea. I could only contemplate, um, and throw out possibilities, but I have no idea. I'm sure maybe in like later works, or they've come up with, or commentaries, maybe they've come up with specific things, but I've never heard of any specifically. It could be that, because of your past training, because you are a stream enter, you're going to grow up in a place where you're more likely to hear the Dhamma, you're less likely to do unskillful things. And like, I kind of look back at my life and see I was a real goody two shoes, and I don't know why. Like, I could have been more normal, but I was always very kind of ethical and wanting to have a virtue, and like, even as young, I wanted to be a chivalrous knight. Right? And as Truna says, wait, what, medieval armor? Right. So even as a young person, I wanted to protect people, to help people, to be very chivalrous, and to be very virtuous. Um, yeah, I mean, I've done some bad things in my life, but really, really pretty goody two shoes. And it's like, well, where did that come from? I don't know. I probably because of past life practice. I'm not saying I'm a stream mentor, because I'm pretty sure I'm not. I don't believe I am. Uh, Probably nowhere close. But your past training obviously can, your past karma that you create in your past training, I think can move forward. So causes and conditions probably work in the Sotipanna's favor, that even if they don't necessarily know per se, they still want to practice and to move forward and to do, these things, and they know. And maybe, they're born in the Deva realm, or the realm, you know, become a non-returner, or they are born in an existence where they know clearly that they're a streamer. Harder to know as a human. I don't know. It's a good question. Much more questions than answers in that regard. Wait, medieval armor? Yeah. Yeah, you can see pictures of me in medieval armor on my Facebook if you look back far enough. Yeah. All right. All right. Talmud has an interesting question. Very common question, but kind of a from a different angle. I read recently that the Buddha taught that his son to his son Rahula. Yeah, this is in one of the Rahula suttas in the Majjhima Nikaya. That a practitioner who lies throws away any spiritual achievement, like throwing away water from a bowl. What about in extreme circumstances, like those who lied to the Nazis to save lives of Jews? So this is essentially a very very common question. Anytime it comes up that the Buddha's hardline stance on lying, and this case is also considered, lying. Now, is it really lying in a really negative way? No, it's a mix of what we call light and dark karma. You're lying because you want to protect somebody, but it's still not skillful. There are examples in the suttas, very few. It's not easy, but there are examples of the Buddha and some awakened beings being able to handle situations without lying. And so I think the more wise you are, the more you're able to handle a situation without directly lying, without trying to deceive. And I can't claim that I'm that far. So it's a hard question. It's a complicated question. And I can't say that if I was in that position that I wouldn't lie. I don't know. If I could, I would try to not. I would try to do something to not lie. I don't know. It's a hard question. Although people always do tend to bring out an extreme because they think that if they can kind of torpedo the idea with one extreme example, that somehow kind of negates the rule. And in this case, it doesn't, without a doubt. Most cases, it doesn't. But this is how people think. They think, oh well, of course, if people lie to the Nazis, that means I can say all kinds of white lies, whatever. I can just say whatever. It's for the good intentions, etc. But no, that's not good. Lying. So when the Buddha talks about lying, it's important to understand how lying impacts the mind. Because not only do we lie externally, we lie internally. And we accept lies and justifications that arise in our mind. Right? This is mostly seen with Mara in the suttas. Mara comes in and says, you should do this. You really, this is just justification. And you're like, yeah, I agree. Yeah. You just accepted a lie. And the more you see that in your mind, the more you realize how many lies you've accepted in your life. I'm talking to even me. I just went through how I was, pretty goody two shoes kind of person. I never really wanted to even barely do anything. Like scared to death even to do, steal candy from a store or something like so many people have done, as a child or a teenager or whatever. But it took me until I'm 45. It took me until maybe 10 years ago in my 30s to really start to understand how much I lie to myself and how many lies I've propagated throughout my life. Even again, it's not even like, anything major, but lies I made when I was a kid to kind of make myself be cooler in front of other people. A lot of times maybe even it's partially true, but I exaggerated it. Right? And I started to observe in my mind as I repeated the lie. I'm like, wait a second. That's not true. I've been lying all these years. This is not good. I don't want to accept any lies in my mind at all. Period. No more lies. If I recognize one, I call it out. I see you, Mara. And I don't accept its justification. And that allows me to have much more clear-headed understanding of what's arising in my mind, not be tricked by justifications and various things, and realize when this is a lie and I'm not going to accept it. I'm going to let it die here. This is not good. And when you have that in your own mind, then you naturally will not lie externally. There are three things not long hidden, the Buddha says: the sun, the moon, and the truth. So don't hide the truth. Don't accept the hiding of the truth. And both internally and externally. And you will see the value, the importance. You will start to understand why the Buddha has such a hard line on not lying. Oh boy, there's lots of chats, lots of questions. This is, every once in a while there's a Dhammapalooza that's all questions, and that's what this one is looking at to be. There's no problem with that. You have questions, then you are able to answer them. That's what I'm here for. Do my best to help you out. See, where are we here? Gregory says, in America, for Theravada monks, how are the lesser rules enforced? Is it up to the abbot? What about those monks who live alone? So the lesser rules are always, all of the monastic rules are honor system. The lesser rules are honor system. So if you have broken a lesser rule, some rules require that you confess. And so you should confess, especially if you're going to do a patimokkha with other monks, so that you're pure when they do the patimokkha. Buddha is very strict about that, even in the Buddhist times. The Mahamoggallana, when the Buddha was about to do a patimokkha chant, Mahamoggallana did his psychic stuff, and he saw that there was an impure monk. So Mahamoggallana took him and threw him out of the circle because he was an impure monk. So that's serious. But and again, impure doesn't mean like evil per se. It's just maybe they broke a rule and they didn't confess it, or they didn't address it how, depending on the seriousness, how you're supposed to address it. But most of the rules actually are, there's thousands of rules. Most people don't realize this. There's thousands of rules. Most of those rules are what we call dukkatas. These are very minor breaches. And they actually technically don't even need to be confessed. Although some of the more very strict places do have a policy of even dukkatas you should confess. I think that's a good thing. I really do. But it's very much not common across all the Buddhist world that I've seen to confess even some of the stuff you probably should confess. The way it's done mostly in most monasteries, again, there are some more strict ones. In some Thai forest places, they do this. Some Thai forest places, they don't do this. But in some more strict places, Bhavana was the same way. When you go to you should confess even the dukkatas, even the small stuff. You should confess it. But normally in the Buddhist world, what happens is all the monks do a chant. And it says, I have committed many such offenses of this, 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 this. And then that chant, even though they've not really told another monk they did it, that chant purifies them, supposedly. I'm kind of iffy on it, but it is the overwhelmingly normal thing done with monastics in the Buddhist world. At least in the again Theravada world. I know nothing about monastic Mahayana Vinaya and what they're supposed to be doing. I know nothing about their Vinaya. So in the Theravada world, I should say. But again, if you hide it, nobody knows. There's nothing. There's no, what do they call, Minority Report? You ever see that movie Minority Report where they arrest people for because some psychics think in the future they might harm somebody, so they pre-arrest you? Right? There's no like psychics knowing exact what you're going to do or that you broke a rule. There's just none. So it's honor system, right? And this is why fear and shame and dread are valuable things, not just for monastics, but also for lay people, and not doing bad things. Shame, very important. It's a bad word today in the West. And there's a lot of shameless activity going on. What are you going to do? But it is what it is. So yeah, that's what it is. All right. Looking through the chat, catching up. The chat really ran away on this session here. Rick says, I have a life-altering chronic illness that impairs almost every area of my life. How do we determine what we really need to care for our physical and mental health while not clinging in unskillful ways? Well, again, that's something that you have to understand for yourself, Rick. What do you really need? And what do you not need? It's kind of the same thing with like the fifth precept. Maybe you need marijuana or opiates to help you bear with pain or suffering of the day. And it's prescribed to you medically. But then maybe you shouldn't be doing, taking more hits or taking more pills outside of the prescription because you feel like you need them. There's a line that you have to realize where you cross, right? I need these things. And maybe because I have a lot of needs, I need more things. That's okay. But I need these things or I don't really need these things. That's something you have to see in your own. Like even if you said, Bante, come to my house and make the choice for me, I'm not you. I'm not in your mind. So I could say, you don't need this. And then like you really need it. So that's something you have to watch your mind. Really kind of see, do I need this or do I not need this? Observe, watch it, even ask your mind that question and watch how it plays through and see if there's any lie or deceit or attachment there. You ever watch that Lord of the Rings or the Golem? My precious. And I'm like, I can't let this go. I can't let this go. But there's a part of you that's like, you probably should, or you probably can. You really don't probably need this, right? Watch that voice. Pay attention to that voice. As much or more as you pay attention to the voice that's, saying, my precious, I can't let it go. Do that. And again, it's not an easy thing. It's something you practice over time. The more you do it, the more you'll be able to understand your motivations, your intentions, and what you need and what you don't need. I'm catching up on a question from ages ago. People talking about, not killing little bugs. You're talking about mowing the lawn. Yeah. Gregory takes bugs outside because the wife and kids will kill them. Yeah. I was babysitting for a couple hours my 6-year-old niece, nephew, and my 4-year-old niece. This is maybe 3 weeks ago, and we were downstairs and they were playing, and there was a little earwig, and my niece was like freaking out. Ah, bug, a bug, bug, bug. I said it's okay. It's not harming anybody. It's just doing his thing, whatever. And my nephew wanted to kill it, and I was like, no, 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 don't worry about it. We'll just. And so I just took a thing, like a thing, and just put over it. Um, who knows if they killed it later? My sister and my brother-in-law. I don't know, but I was there, and it's like, hey, you don't need to kill it. It's okay. Just uh, we'll just put it over. Capture it so that you're not, this little 3-year-old girl is not freaking out over it. So you do those kind of things. What happens afterwards, it's out of your hands. You had the opportunity, you do the action. If your wife and kids kill them anyway, you did what you could. And it has a question, Bante, does it matter if someone dies within a day of being born or someone that lived a long life? Um, well, that's your karma playing out. Sometimes your karma from a past life allows you to have a good long human life, and sometimes it doesn't. You know, even sometimes you're taken out in the womb. You don't even make it out of the womb, and you're taken out. You go to your next life, whatever it is. Whether it's in the womb a day after you're born or 99 years after you're born. When you die, you die, and it's due to a variety of different causes and conditions, and you're born again. So in samsaric journey, you have lives that are measured in seconds and lives that are measured in eons. Matthias says, second precept. So not taking what is not given. Did the Buddha talk about taking someone's time? For example, someone is in a hurry or occupied getting their attention. That be breaking the precept? No, I think that's an extreme. That's no, that would not be breaking the precept. No. Um, it might be a good mindful thing, right? The Buddha talks about the right time to talk to somebody or to engage with somebody, right? To say something that is truthful, factual, beneficial, kindly at the right time. Okay, so this might fall into the next level of being mindful of your actions beyond your karma. But no, let's not be breaking the precept. I think, especially in modern Western concepts, and like I've seen this in some more secular things, people talking about the precepts, and they just add so much extra stuff to the precepts. Even they turn sexual misconduct into sensual misconduct, which is not part of the precept at all. That's more in line with sense restraint and deeper practices. The 5 precepts are always the most basic, bare bones morality and virtue. Everything, there's a lot more to that. There's a lot more morality and virtue you can also do, but the 5 precepts are always the absolute bare bones. It would make absolutely no sense that one of the 5 precepts is sensual misconduct. Absolutely no sense. Makes much more sense that, Buddha is saying to a layperson, try not to, sleep with people who are married or minors or, monastics or something like it. These are much more gross level bad things. Sensual misconduct is much more subtle, meditative kind of level of bad. So there's no way that that would be part of the precept. All right. Kristen says, "Where am I physically located right now?" Right now, I'm in New Jersey with my parents. Yes, my requisites are always met, and even if I need something, people support me, Amazon cards and things like that. And like I just recently ran out of this toothpaste that I need for my gums, like sensitive toothpaste gums, and I was able to just order it on Amazon because people gave me gift card. Sometimes people will say, "Bante, tell me if you need anything. I want to order it for you directly." And unfortunately, I forget about that sometimes because it is easier just to do yourself, order it on Amazon. But it really kind of cuts out. Like I really try to be like somebody said, "Bante, if you need anything, tell me." And even though it's extra steps where I could just literally go on Amazon and click and have something come to me, it's 4 or 5 extra steps. It's better because it's really doing what somebody should be doing. Like if somebody wants to go through those steps for me, I should let them. Um, it's complicated for me because again, I'm very agreeable and I don't want to bother people. So, I have all these issues with, with not wanting to bother people. I've always been that way. I'm much better at it than I was when I was younger, but it's part of my personality, I guess. So, all right. I see a lot of talking back and forth between you guys, like helping out each other. That's great. I love it. I love to see that in the chat. Anna was thinking it saying about bringing something to them to when you become a monastic, your books, your Dhamma books, and pictures of your parents. Yeah, that's fine. No problem there. Gregory saying it would be good to do some readings of the Atthakavagga of the Sutta Nipata. Any thoughts on if it's more fundamental than suttas? Um, the Sutta Nipata is generally thought to be amongst the earliest strata of the teachings. I don't know that it's more fundamental than what you find in the suttas. I think that you would find what's in. I can't like the Atthakavagga. Like I can't recall exactly what's in there off the top of my head, so I can't really give a specific. Um, but pretty much everything you see in the Sutta Nipata, you can find somewhere in the Nikayas, the other Nikayas, the 4 main Nikayas. Oh, people talking about how they're giving up things. Very good. Visaka says it wasn't easy and I cried and cried, but I did it. Very good. You know, I had Visaka when I was at Bhavana. One of my favorite residents was this older gentleman. I still email him every once in a while. He's a former Mormon from Nevada, and he stayed at Bhavana a total of about 6 months in 2 separate times. And we really hit it off. He was a really nice gentleman, um, very like fatherly figure, and he actually on his second trip he brought and he gave to me a pocket knife. I still have it. It's in the closet with my work jacket. a pocket knife that his grandfather had. And this is a 70-year-old gentleman. So this is like a pocket knife from the late 1800s that he gave to me. And boy, have I used it, especially all those years of Bhavana, all the woodwork and everything. And that's such a wonderful gift to have that. I'll as far as a monk can actually own something like a pocket knife. That is part of what we can have. Even a machete, a monk could have. These are in the monastic rules. So this pocket knife, I'm going to keep as long as especially if I do, hopefully, end up having my own forest monastery. Guess what? I'm going to be working with wood. I'm going to be doing all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to need a good pocket knife. And so that was such a wonderful gift that he gave to me. I don't remember why he didn't give it to his son or whatever. I mean, he has, kids and grandkids. I don't know why, but he gave it to me, and I cherish that. And that was something that was important to him. You think about that. You think about the good things. Like I gave my car to my ex-girlfriend, and it's like, we're still friends. It wasn't anything bad, but it's like, I think like I feel good about that. I think, I hope she got a couple years out of it because it was a good car. If you took care of it, you could go probably 7 or 8 more years. I don't know. I haven't heard from her in like 4 years, so I have no idea what happened to the car. But it's a good thing. You think about those kind of things that good deeds that you do, for years to come, even if it is sad in the beginning. Hello, Joy. Joy says, can lay people and teachers talk about their meditation achievements, such as reaching fourth jhana and higher? Also, can they teach others to reach those meditation stages? Sure. Yeah, they can. There's no rule against lay people doing it. Yeah. I mean, I would always question if they actually know what they're doing, if they actually have attained those. Uh, I'd also question monks, by the way, of that too. I think it's a good rule that monastics are not too forthcoming with their attainments. Um, because even if they actually do have there's definitely the ability for people to think they have an attainment, but they don't. You see this in the suttas. That's even one of the monastic rules. Under the monastic rules of a monk claims they have something, but they actually were mistaken. They thought they did, but they didn't, and then they realized later they didn't break the rule. They thought they actually had. So I'd always be at least a little wary of someone who claims any attainments, even if it seems like they have so many followers and so many people and such. Always keep a little bit of a radar up. You just never know. Could be no problems, but there's a lot more fakeness than realness in this regard out there. And responding, my aunt died in a day, and her sister lived almost 70 years. I went to my family grave yesterday. That's what perplexed me. That is beautiful, wonderful contemplation. This is what you see, right? Years and years ago, when I was married, my wife was going through the cancer. Some of I was married and she died like almost 18 years ago now, something like that. But one of the things that I remember being in the top cancer hospital in the country at the time, which is Sloan Kettering in New York City, because my wife was fairly young. She was like 21, 22. Sometimes she ended up on the child wing. And so I remember multiple times seeing like 20 or 30 bald headed kids and thinking, hmm, even if my wife doesn't make it past 25, heck, she might she might have had much longer a life than a lot of these kids will. And that's kind of like, yeah, you don't know when you're going to die. Look at what's going on in the Middle East stuff. People are fighting over whose kids are dying. Just like they're all freaking dying. It's ridiculous, but this is life. This is samsara. It is what it is. I mean, it doesn't. You can die at a day, and you can die at 70. This is the nature of life. So though you contemplate this, and you realize, hell, I could die tomorrow. You think it's a joke when I do my morning master experience or this, where I end up with, if I'm alive tomorrow? I've seen enough people die in my own life from a young age to be like, yeah, I can die tomorrow. Of course, yeah. I mean, listen, I've been doing this for 20 years with this meditation almost. And still, even in the day to day, sometimes I lose track of it. I'm not perfect. But you keep recollecting, you keep contemplating these things, and you're never too far away from remembering that, hey, guess what? You might not make it the night. You might not. You wake up this morning, you think you're going to make it to the end of the day? Maybe chances are you will. But there's some chance that you're not going to. So the mountains are closing in. How do you act? So, Rick, what I would say is, when it comes to your health and things like that, if you're unable to see clearly, that it's have compassion for yourself. Just know that you're only able to do what you can do. When I'm sick or when I'm kind of depressed or when I'm, all I can do is just give metta to myself. Screw everybody else. I don't have metta for you people. I can't deal with you people, right? Or whatever. You just have metta for yourself. That's all you can do. It's when you're sick or when you have issues, it's even harder to be mindful because your mind is not clear as well, or you're dealing with lots of things that cloud the mind. It is what it is. You can only do the best you can do. If you are having the opportunity to intentionally do the best you can do every day, that's all you can do. And don't expect anything too much more. I think it's always good to try to be better, but incrementally better. Don't expect too much more that when you don't meet that, you think badly of yourself. It's not worth doing. Maybe you need to adjust your increments, right? So and not have your ideal, your goal, your expectations too far ahead of where you really can get in the day to day. Knife for repairing robes, knife for all kinds of things. When you live in the wilderness, there's all kinds of reasons for knives besides repairing robes. Yeah. A good sharp, and this is that phrase, they don't make them like they used to. They don't make it. It's the best pocket knife I've ever had. And I've owned many and many expensive ones. The best pocket knife I've ever had. I shouldn't, it's not like, it's like the blade is like this. It's a good old fashioned, good pocket knife. Really good. And I think of him. I think of him all the time because of that gift. You know. All right. I love that you are all really encouraging each other and saying good things to each other and giving each other tips in the chat. That's great. This is what I love to see in Dhammapalooza. I really do. I love to see that. Right? because it's not just about listen to Bante J yap for 2 hours. I say that all the time. But every once in a while, when I get to see this, encouraging each other about pets and things like this, and and your struggles, this is great. Community is very important. All right. The acknowledgement that death can happen at any time has created lots of anxiety for myself. Isaka, you have to keep practicing. Do the five subjects of contemplation every day. If the more you come to the more you face the fact that you can die at any time, the less anxiety you'll have. It is what it is. Keep practicing. Oh, hello, Andrew. Good to see you. Isaka says, Bante, do you hear confessions? Um, Monastic confessions, yeah. If you have even if you're living by yourself, these days you can get on a phone with a monastic, right? Or get on the internet and confess and talk to each other about your struggles and things like that. I mean, I just had a a good conversation with Ajahn Nisabo. I'm just today having a back and forth with Aya Chitananda, and it's always good to talk, about your struggles with other monastics. It's so important. And so the same thing, lay people with lay people. So no, you don't. I don't really. It's not really part of Buddhism. I mean, I have had lay people feel like they need to confess to me, and I do it. It's okay. If they feel they need to confess to somebody, and it's going to be me, that's okay. It's good. I encourage that. No problem. But it's not a requirement. It's not like Christianity where you have to go in the booth and bless me, Bante. It's been 3 years since my last confession, and I say do 108 power squat bows to the Buddha, like the Tibetans, and they go do 108 of those, and say a few Karaniya Metta suttas, and you're all good. No, that's not part of Buddhism, but confessing is always a good thing to do. That's what you have. What do they call it? They call it in these days accountability buddies, right? You have somebody who you can, hey, say, we're going to lose weight. And when I'm faltering, you're going to help me out. When you're faltering, I'm going to help you out. And I'm going to call out your BS and you're going to call out my BS, and we're going to help each other, right? That's good. That's a good thing to have. There's no doubt. It's a good thing to have. That's what the monastic life is. That's really what it's supposed to be. That's why confessing is supposed to be a good thing, right? That you're not going to be overly judged by your fellow monastics. They're going to be like, okay, yeah, this is rough. Do you need any help? What do you need from us that we can help you maybe not to break this rule again? That's how it should be. Unfortunately, that's really not how it is in many, many places, in many, many ways. But if I end up having monastics under me, that's how it's going to be. My door's always open. I don't give a crap if it's 2:00 in the morning. If you're about to break a rule, you come to my door. And we'll work on this together. That's how it should be. Even for lay people. But for monastics especially, because it's a hard thing. The Buddha heard confessions from lay people, didn't he? I guess, yeah, technically sometimes he did. Foolish man, you have committed an offense. That's true. And even though I feel weird about it, in the Buddhist tradition, there is, if you go to the Bhavana Vandana, I took it out of the Maggasekha chanting book because I don't know. I go back and forth about it. But there is, forgive me, Buddha, if I have done anything wrong by body, speech, or mind. Forgive me, Dhamma, if I have done anything wrong by body, speech, or mind. Forgive me, Sangha, if I've done anything wrong by body, speech, or mind. And my mind is like, who the hell are you asking? What's the Dhamma is not a person. Why are you asking forgiveness? There's that part of me, but then the other part is you're confessing that you're not perfect, right? So there's a value in there, but kind of like my modern Western mind part of it is kind of like this silly. The Buddha's gone. Who you confessing the Buddha? You can't confess the Buddha, But my mind is like, well, I grew up Catholic, so you confess to a priest, So those are my own shortfalls. But there is there's a kind of a value behind that I recognize, even though I don't really see the full. I mean, I don't know. It's hard for me to explain it. But that concept of kind of confessing is, it may not really technically be fully there in the suttas, but it is part of the Buddhist world these days. Misaka says, I don't want to die. I'm terrified of a nasty rebirth. Yeah, I can see that. But you've done it already. You've already done the tour of all the hells multiple times. You've already been in the animal realm, the ghost realm. You got to go there again. You're going to go there again. I could go there again. If I don't become a stream mentor in this life, I could go there again. My past karma throughout infinity of lives. I could go I could go to hell realm next life. I don't know. All I know is I'm here now, and the best I can do is just practice. All I can do is practice like the mountains are coming in and get as close as I can to at least stream entry, if not awakening. And if I don't make it, well, I might have to suffer through a hell or two, but I can get there more. I've progressed along the path. So, yes, it is possible you might have a nasty rebirth next life, but it's also possible you might not. And until you become at least a stream mentor, having a nasty rebirth is always going to be a possibility. So, try to do your best to act in this life in a way that's going to minimize, rebirth in future lives that are unwholesome or that are painful and not desirable rebirths. It's the idea of death that can be scary, not the actual thing. Now, granted, I've not experienced death in a war zone or you know been around somebody who's mangled and cut in half or whatever in an accident or something like that. But the experiences with death I have had basically made me not be afraid of death. It's tended to be a fairly peaceful thing. Maybe getting up to it is not so peaceful. It's very, can be a lot of suffering for you depending on your conditions. But yeah, I mean, it's been, yeah, I mean, in the end, it's a very peaceful. I don't want to use the word magical, but it's almost like you're witnessing something very different, very beyond the normal. That's peaceful. So, and that's been my experience anyway. So yeah, I don't really have fear of death in that regard. Uh, at least that fear that it'll be. It might be painful, but if I can at least try to be mindful as much as possible, I think it will be beneficial. All right. So why don't we? It's 8:39. Why don't we do 10 minutes of meditation? At least to get some meditation in. Just 10. I'm not going to do guided. We're just going to sit for 10 minutes. And then after that, we'll close up. So just a brief time of closing your eyes and following your breath. Meditating together. Slowly open your eyes, becoming aware of the room around you, the people in it, as we begin to close down for the night. So we'll do our business, then we'll share merits. If you're joining us for the first time, or you'd like to know more about me and the organization Maggasekha, find out what is going on more, you can go to the website below, scrolling on the screen, maggasekha.org, maggasekha.org. There, everything I do, whether if I have a new article, I have another article coming out this Friday. If I'm doing a retreat, the live stream, a video, whatever. When I'm traveling, I'm always posting. That's kind of that website is my headquarters. So if you need to know anything that's happening, anything that's coming out, that's the website to go to. If you like, you can. In the top right, there's a spot for you to put your email and then you subscribe. So anytime I post something new, you'll get an email. So that's one way to keep in touch and to find out the various things that are done. We also have to go over some of the things that we do every Monday. Now, of course, all of these are subject to me not traveling or me being in a place I can do them. But the normal schedule of events that we do is Monday nights, Dhammapalooza, 7 p.m. Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. in the morning, New York time, GMT -5. We do our morning monastery experience, which is a half-hour program, which is modeled after the morning practice at a monastery. So we do some precepts, some chanting, and a little Dhamma talk at the end, a little kind of giving some Dhamma to start your day with. So you're always welcome. We'll be back tomorrow morning in about 11 hours. I'll be back live streaming again for a half hour. So you're welcome to join us Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. And Saturdays on Insight Timer, I have my Insight Timer session at 3 p.m. New York time, 3 to 4:30. And Sundays on the Discord, Sunday nights, the community reads suttas together. Everybody takes turn reading through suttas. Excuse me. My voice is giving out a little bit. And so to talk about our community on the Discord program, it's a community that we're 8 years old now. And we are a community that whose primary focus is the early Buddhist text, the suttas. We, as both a practice, study and practice. So we have the suttas as our guide for study and practice. And if this is a community that sounds like you might be interested in, you're welcome to send an email. The email on the screen, maggasekha@gmail.com, and just say that you'd like to have an invite, and I'll send you an invite, and you can check out the community. All right, friends, let's share a screen here to do our sharing of merits and call it a night. Oh, and also, just as a reminder, what's today? Monday. So in 2 nights, I'll be on Empty Clouds live stream Wednesday. This Wednesday and next Wednesday, I'll be doing their streams at 7:30 to 9, or 7:30 to 8:30, whatever, however long it goes. All right. So share screen. Dukkha patta chane dukkha, bhaya patta chane bhaya, soka patta chane soka, hontu sabbe pipaniyo, etavata chamehi, sampatang punya sampatang, sabbe deva anumodantu, sabba sampatti sittiya, akasatta chabumata, deva naga mahiddika, punyang tang anumoditva, charang rakantu sasanang. May the suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit of ours that we've thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas, nagas, and yakas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddhist dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All right, friends, thank you for being here with us tonight. Wonderful discussion, lots of great questions, lots of discussion and supporting each other in the chat. I love to see that. So, this is always encouraged by me to build a community and to support and encourage each other in this way. Wonderful to see. So, Suki Hotu, may you be well and at ease, practice well and be well. May you have a spiritually successful and peaceful practice until we meet again, which, if I'm alive, should be tomorrow morning for another morning monastery experience, or Saturday for an insight timer session, Sunday for sutta reading, or perhaps next Monday for another Dhammapalooza. Have a good week.